Okay, here I am. It's Saturday morning. How about that? At 10:22 a.m. I finally got all my stuff together. You can see. Let's change the producers. Change the. There we go. Producers. That's my right hand. Literally, that's my right hand. Yeah, there we go. If you can see up on the very top. Let's. Well, we're a Simulcast. You know, we broadcast on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Live. W Live, if you will. And I just lost Facebook Live. So I don't know if I'll have the whole broadcast or not, but they just bombed out after 1 minute for some reason. I don't know. It must be the weather. But if you can see the weather up in the, there we go. You see up here. The Boca Raton, I just zoomed in on the weather. And it's looking out our living room windows, which I can look straight across here and see that it is seriously raining. There's lightning all over the place. It's inundating Kendall, Miami, the airport, Pembroke Pines, Southwest Ranches, Fort Lauderdale, and we're getting just the edge of it as it glides across the state with this frontal system. Let's get that thing out of the way. There we go. All right, we have a either-or situation, apparently, with our signals. I just wanted to look at a couple of show and tell items here. You've been hearing me talk about Ozempic. Here's my tea. Nice warm tea. Let's do this first. You see this? Trista tea. Now this is a mix. I've see if I can show you without pouring it out. If you can see it there. You see that? It's got all kinds of berries, and dried twigs. But it makes a marvelous tea. I was coffee in the morning. Well, I'm now tea in the morning. And I make iced tea for Marilyn for the week. And she drinks it at the office. And drinks it on the weekends. And you remember I was also talking about Ozempic. Well, here's the Ozempic. The pen I was talking about. This is a nifty little thermos. You put this little doodad in the freezer, It's one of these freezer thingies. And you slip that right in there. This is a thermos. It's vacuum sealed, double walled stainless steel. This guy fits right in there to keep it chilled, because you want it to keep it at and then here is the Novo Nordisk, amazing company. So you take the cap off. You can see the cylinder. You see the plunger in the middle, the black plunger. This has a screw top on it and like a sponge that this is a double. You can see inside there maybe. There's a needle in there, believe me. So you just take this screw-on needle and you just poke it in there and then screw this on and pull the cap off, and then this is another cap, and there's a it's hard to see. The needle is a 32 gauge needle, which is the smallest gauge there is. You have to pull this cap off to get this on. So this morning, after this broadcast, I'm going to take, you rotate this, you hear that clicking? That's the plunger, and you turn it up to 1 milligram of Ozempic. See, here's the Ozempic pen. So I'll take that. That was my alarm to take it. But I'm not going to take it because I'm talking to you guys. But it flattens out my, I'll show you on this. Now that we're not doing show and tell, see if I can add this. There we go. There we go. So now I'm gonna there it is, all the way over on the right side, top, Libre link up. That's what I want. So my iPad has been connected to my phone, which connects to the back. I have one of those things that, ouch! Here it is, it's back here. And it, yeah. There you go. So my blood sugar is at my blood glucose, correctly stated, is 157 milligrams per deciliter. More commonly known to 157. You want it somewhere between 75 and 175. You can see I can't expand it. So this went up to 208 after dinner, and then it came steadily down. I got up, at about 6 a.m. and it went up a little bit, and then it steadily came down, and now it's come up a little bit because I have a little, I'd rather have a little sugar in my tea than diet anything. I don't want to do diet drinks, and I don't want to, have all that chemistry, those chemicals, constantly, every day, those chemicals in your system. It can't be good for you. It just can't be. So, I try to stick with non-diet anything. I don't want to do diet. The Ozempic is, I take this and, you turn that up to 1 milligram. The needle is super fine, and it's only 4 millimeters long. So it's the needle is shorter than the length of than the width of the straw. This is like a 1/4 inch. The needle is slightly less. It's 4 millimeters. They're 25 millimeters in an inch. So it's like 1/6 of an inch. A little tiny bit, maybe 1/7 of an inch. So you don't have to worry about how far you stick it in, like you're going to hit your stomach or something. Just about everybody has at least 4 millimeters of, epidermis and fat tissue and so forth before you start getting into your abdominal cavity, so to speak. So you just stick it in all the way. The needle has a flat base on it, so it comes right up to the skin, and the needle goes in the skin. So you don't have to worry about, how far to stick it in. Anyway, so it's a very convenient needle, and it's made, specifically for type 2 diabetes people like myself, being just under 80. Yes, I am under 80 for the time being until next March. Then I'll be 80. Just hit. My birthday is on the first day of spring. Yahoo! March 20 at 9:36 a.m. I just looked it up in my birth certificate. It looks like a diploma. I graduated from Mary Immaculate Hospital in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I was born. My mother was a Romance language student of language. She graduated as valedictorian of, I think, Jamaica High School. 2,500 students, back when students actually tried to learn something. Today, students is like a babysitting service where they, take the kids off your hands so you can go to work. I studied, and a certain lower percentage of the students, parents, it all comes down to parental expectations, I would call it. My mother, my father was very dedicated to his work. He was almost like a surgeon, but he wasn't in the medical thing. He was in the steel business. He provided grading for bridges and the steel for the entire subway system of New York. It's a lot of steel. And, of course, you had to deal with the steel manufacturers to make sure it was, rolled, milled, and drilled properly. so that all these erector set pieces, a lot of plans and specifications. I mean, the plans, are tens and thousands of pounds of plans. You figure for every mile of the steel necessary to build an elevated highway requires a lot of steel, a lot of engineering. You have to engineer the support system, the holes and the concrete systems, and the bolts that come up, and they have to be perfectly measured. So when a crane, because you don't just, it's like an erector set, you don't just, somebody do that. You have to have a crane. It lifts up slowly, takes it off a big trailer, hoists it up, and it's got to be, perfectly level. And it's, then you got the cross beams, and he was doing that when I was born, so that was a long time ago. Those L's, they call them L's, because the steel goes up, and then you got a piece that comes across, and there's no piece coming down, because there was no place to create the support system without disrupting a lot of retail stores and all that. So they only had so much right of way, and they come up and they go across. So there's a lot of weight, and that all has to be engineered. So they engineer that up a couple of degrees so that when you have the weight of the highway on it, or the roadway, or the train, elevated trains, mostly, I believe. Yeah. There were other places where it's elevated highway, but this is elevated trains. And anyway, so he was in that business, and my mother was in making sure Jimmy went to school and learned what he needed to learn. She was a linguist. She was fluent in English, of course, Latin, French, German, I believe Spanish and Russian. So she particularly, she passed away like 20 years ago. So maybe 25 years ago. Time flies. And I remember her telling me how she really loved Latin. And she could speak Latin. She could talk to the Pope if she had to. She could talk to anybody that knew Latin fluently. And back in her day, there were more people that knew Latin than today. Today, only linguists really knew Latin. Anyway, so there you see my blood sugar. It's with my yakking in the last 18 minutes, 19 minutes. You can see the count up clock over here. And on the other side of this microphone, I'll move this out of the way. You see this timer that's going backwards. And I can glance at that. This thing is in the way. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah. There we go. This is like an x-ray machine right in front of my face. So that tells me I got 20 minutes to go. This says I've been on the air for 20 minutes. So that's that. So I got my Ozempic pen in here. In an hour, I give myself a little poke, push the button on the top. It injects 1 milligram of semaglutide. Semaglutide is the active ingredient, the only ingredient. It's not mixed with anything else, except, I guess, saline. And it goes right underneath your skin and, moves around inside your skin and gets absorbed by your body. And it controls my blood sugar like crazy. It's just about all the way over here at, you see where it's in the orange? See how that turns orange? Because it went over 200. Or over 180. Yeah. See 177, it's okay. 183, not so. When it gets over 180, I believe, which is the edge of the green zone. So I could have given myself 2 units of insulin just to help out what's going on. But Ozempic, look at that. For 20, let's just take that 1 hour off. For 23 hours, it's really steady Eddie on the blood glucose, which is the whole purpose. That's what Ozempic was designed for. As it turns out, Ozempic was designed for exactly what I'm using it for, to control your blood sugar, which has just about eliminated my need for insulin. Now, if I went down to lemongrass for, a nice bowl of, what do you call it? Scallops. Stir-fried scallops. That rice that I eat along with the scallops drives my blood sugar, So I'd probably take a couple units of insulin before I went down if I knowingly was going to go to lemongrass. Not that we're going there. Marilyn is getting her nails done right now from 10 to 11:30, about an hour and a half, or 10:30 to 11:30, something like that. 10:15 to 11:30. Look at that. Blood sugar's down to 145. See, it was up to 158, and now it's down to 145. There you go, 158. Now it's down to 145. Drinking a little tea. And anyway, in the news, let's go there. So I usually pick up stuff here. This New York Attorney General is, according to Newt Gingrich, he says it's probably driving more taxpayers and profitable businesses out of New York than anything else that's going on in New York, which I can understand. The way our legal system is designed, they have laws, they have law enforcement officials, like police people, and the police are supposed to watch, what's going on in the world, in their jurisdiction, in their area, the demographic of what they do. And if they see you doing something, you're walking around brandishing a gun and you're shooting it all over the place, a police guy, if he happens to notice that, or if a neighbor called the police, he would come after you and arrest you for, brandishing a firearm and, disturbing the peace, at least, maybe injuring somebody, destroying public property, private property, depending on what you were shooting the gun at, because when a bullet goes up, even if you shoot it up, it comes down somewhere. Now, maybe penetrating someone's roof, hopefully it's just penetrating the grass somewhere, but there's a lot of roofs in certain, densely populated areas, or it could come down through the top of an office building, or, a roof like what's behind Newt Gingrich there, he spends a lot of time in London, or in Italy, because his wife works in the Vatican in some kind of a capacity. In such a capacity that he's actually moved to Vatican City somewhere, wherever you live in Vatican City, outside the Vatican, probably. And she works in the Vatican every day, however often that is, which is, I think, often. So when he does any broadcasts in the United States, he, has a camera in his dwelling unit. I'm making this up because I don't actually know for a fact, but I imagine, because that background is the same, so he has a picture of the Vatican, and he has a green screen behind him, or he has the picture, in his the app that he uses to send his signal into the New York headquarters, because this is a Fox Business excerpt. You can see the credit in the bottom of this image where it says Fox Business, from Fox Business. Yeah, they're the one that created this image. And it was, from his live broadcast into Fox Business, sometime last week, when the Dow Jones was up about 40,000. Can you believe it? Talk about inflation. Oh, my God. Ooh. Well, the mother's milk of business is profits, earnings. And the earnings in businesses is really quite good. The overall economy stinks because with this administration, retail prices of things has gone up 20, 30, 40, 50, 100%. And it doesn't come down. The prices go up and they stay up. The only thing that brings prices down is deflation. And we are nowhere near deflation. As a matter of fact, the inflation rate is edging up higher. And why? Because our leader, our president, keeps spending money. They just spent another trillion, 1.1 trillion is what forget billions anymore, hundreds of billions. They go right to trillion. Now we already have 34 trillion, so now it's ticked up to 35 trillion. A little over 35 trillion, actually. Well, you get to the point where you go over the cliff, and the country goes into bankruptcy, and it can't pay its bills. It can't pay the interest on its treasury bills. The interest on our debt now exceeds our annual budget for our entire military around the globe. Now and if interest rates keep ticking up, the treasury bill prices keep going up. So it's we're on it's a real problem. Anyway, so I'll shrink that down. So Newt was talking about, how the Attorney General in New York is essentially frightening businesses, because if they can do it to Trump with all his influence and all, the judge was a wacko. He said you're guilty even before he heard any testimony from anybody. He said, Mr. Trump, you're guilty. Now, where have we ever heard, you talk about an appeal. You talk about an unbiased judge. No. He's as wacko as Letitia James, the famous Attorney General of New York, who it was a non-jury, it was a judge verdict. Okay? Now you can have, I actually had a case that went to the New York Supreme Court, which we won. But you got to take it to the appellate court and then, the Supreme Court of New York, which I believe has 5 justices on it. It can be a 3-judge panel or a 5-judge panel. We won a unanimous verdict with a 3-judge Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of New York. It was a inheritance thing with my father and a stepson. And anyway, you don't want to hear about that. All right, what else we got here? Well, Russia has launched. You can see that panel over on the right side of your screen. I'm jiggling it a little bit. There we go. Huge attacks on Ukrainian electrical power, its utility system, which I could never understand why it's destroying all these buildings and they're ravishing the population. What do I know about war tactics? I know very little, but just intuitively, I just couldn't understand why they would, let the trains run. It seems to me the first thing you do is you drop a bomb on the train tracks. If you have a docking system, with boats and the flotillas and military ships. So you bomb the ports of entry. So you kill all the possibility of exports and imports. So that, and if you knock out the trains, that'll pretty much take care of a lot of your trade and commerce, outside of Ukraine. And they left the power on. You don't have to knock out the nuclear power facility, but you can certainly, there's a whole array of, towers, and, you can throw something on that and knock out the grid, the main part of the grid. So you kill some of the power. And that's what's going on now. They are going after the power grid. And when you don't have power, I got I got all kinds of power needs here. I mean, they're not a lot because all these devices run on, I got a box underneath there that would scare you to death. It's wired up pretty good. I'll have to take a picture of it and show it to you. It's, they got wires coming and going everywhere to power all this, my Rodecaster Pro audio thing, which is right ahead of your site, and then my MacBook Air with 24 gigabytes of unified memory, which I'm using about 52% of 24 gigabytes. So it takes 12 gigabytes of unified memory, which for any of you computer people, which the wired memory is 2.2 gigabytes. The wired memory means those applications, operating system software is locked into cubicles of memory in the memory array. With 24 gigabytes of memory, it's divided up into chunks. and it all connects together. But it's 24 gigabytes of unified memory. Now, of that unified memory, 2.2 gigabytes is isolated. It's occupied by operating system and applications like this Rodecaster Pro, which is quite an amazing. It's called Ecamm Live. ECAMM LIVE. Ecamlive.com, which I pay, I think $20 a month to essentially use their software, which connects my Rodecaster Pro and these other external cameras. You know, there's a camera right here, a high definition video camera, and then it takes a signal through this black wire and throws it into my MacBook Air. This over here is an IBM, not IBM, Apple. iPad Pro, which using my Xfinity network, I can see a delayed broadcast, keep me up with the news. And this one, which just hooked on, is running my Radar Pro, which is a software package. It's coming to the end of this fast-moving array of thunderstorms, wind, and rain, and you can see the lightning. Yeah, you can see what's going on there. There we go. This is steady, right? Yeah. Just shaking I jiggled that. I just wanted you to see the whole screen of the radar that's going by. So the skies should, get cleaned up and sunny this afternoon. Marilyn is taking a friend to the beach early in the morning just so she can wiggle her toes in the sand. She's not well. This is a girl that Marilyn grew up with. Everyone is in their 70s now. We're fortunate enough to make it to the 70s, plural. They're in their 70s also. And she's by herself, and she's probably diabetic, and she's had some big chunks of her leg taken out, so she can't get around real well. So Marilyn's gonna take her with her cane over to the beach so she can wiggle her feet in the sand for an hour or so. I think they'll be okay rain-wise, but I think it's going to be really windy because you can see how fast that system is moving, and all that air is going to be continuing to move rapidly. So you probably got 20-mile-an-hour winds, let's say 14-mile-an-hour winds at the beach, which, it's pretty hard wind in your face when you're sitting at the beach. A little sip of hot tea. All right, what else we got going on? All right, so this is a little news on Trump. You can see Trump in the background. So Trump's Truth Social is going public. DWAC approves the merger. So it is going public, and I think it went public yesterday. So I think that's a payday for Trump, his organization. he started Truth Social several years ago, so let's say 3-4 years ago, when it became obvious that Twitter was infiltrated by operatives of the Biden administration. And they were eliminating any stories that would criticize him, his activities, the party, or whatever. So, they were just silencing those threads on Twitter. And I think that's one of the reasons why Elon Musk spent, I think, somewhere around $45 billion of his own personal wealth in cash and debt. I don't think it was all cash. My instincts are it's like half and half. So he used 20-something billion of his own personal tiny. And then he borrowed, with the investment banking community, they gave him, the other 25 or 26 billion, which pays off and, interest and all that kind of stuff. So when all that was, and it's not that Elon Musk is some big, rhino, or I think he's middle of the road, but that was just unconscionable, that a organization like Twitter, that you wouldn't think there'd be somebody in there, cutting stories that have any kind of a conservative bend to it. That's just not fair in his view. So he bought it, and he fired 90% of the staff, and he had part of the staff reporting on other part of the staff to, get the bad apples out of there. And that's what he did. Well, anyway, so during that before that, so let's say 3.5 years ago, he started Truth Social, which was, he hired a bunch of engineers that know how to create such a beast and the computer infrastructure that's needed to host something that requires huge amounts of bandwidth so people can access it. So he has taken Truth Social, and it went public, I believe, Friday. So it funded Friday. DWAC approved the merger, and boom, it's done. Bam. And here the House passes a $1.2 trillion spending package to keep the government funded. And the Senate, I think, passed it last night. House passed it with a vote of 286 to 134. So, and looks like 6 Republicans didn't vote. A 112 Republicans voted against it. 22 Democrats voted against it. And, but 101 Republicans voted for it. I'm looking underneath the print here. 101 voted for it, and 185 Democrats voted for it. You add that up, you should be getting 286. That's it. And 34, or 134 House of Representatives voted against it. There it is. There's 134. And 12. 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans, and no vote, which is the functional equivalent of an abstention. They were there and didn't vote. They didn't want to have an opinion on this $1.2 trillion. Vote for it or against it. No vote, really? They ought to publish those guys' names and say, really, you're there. We're paying you $150,000, $180,000, $200,000 a year to be in government, depending on your number of years you've been there, and because you get 6-7% pay raises every year, and then they don't vote when they finally have a chance to vote. That is House Representatives Bill 1102, if you want to look it up, and you can see how that $1.2 trillion is spent. And you can be sure there's a bunch of reasons that they should not have, shouldn't have done it. But they did it. All right, the new iPad Pro models, they're debuting, and they have thinner bezels and a sleeker design. Plus everything else you need to know. I think they have increased the processor. It's going to go 30% faster, and it always edges up quality. I forget if they've changed the screen illumination method. This is micro LED. I mean, it is very hard to see any pixelation with the iPad Pro, but they're changing it to OLED. That apparently the engineering of the OLED, which is organic. I don't imagine what an organic LED is, but I'll have to look into that one day. So here's a mobile. Look at this. There's a ballistic missile that popped out of this canister on a mobile truck, mobile Jeep kind of a thing that's armor piercing and all that. You can see it has a thing that elevates, and it's got a radar doodad inside that. Because it's has a guided missile, and it's on target, and this this round thing here communicates with the missile as it's going towards its target, whatever that is. And apparently this is in the Ukrainian theater. So it's clearing out drone launching warehouses, all that, according to the headlines there. Well, this is kind of lousy. I don't know if any of you have been in Washington, but you can see, these cherry blossoms. They bloom in March, April, May. This is the stump. Someone cut the top off of that tree for some reason years ago, and one of the branches of this poor tree remains, and it still does the cherry blossom blooming. Well, now they're going to cut down, another 100 trees because they want to improve this seawall, around the, I don't know, it's the Washington Monument. I think so. They're going to cut down 120 trees. And I think it's right in the area where it says trees. Right along there. I mean, can you imagine? The Japanese gave us those trees, 75 years ago. And now we're going to cut them down because you're going to screw with the seawall? You know, do the seawall where you got the seawall. Why do you have to ruin these beautiful trees that are surrounding that whole harbor? Anyway, so that's what that headline's all about. And they got this guy, you know, Stumpy. He's running around, you know, gaining attraction with the media to let everybody know that people are cutting down these trees. And I'm wondering, you know, the city council must be smoking weed or something. They actually approved cutting down all these trees. You know, couldn't they have another engineering, you know, discovery to figure out how to improve the seawalls without cutting down those trees? Costs a little more, so what? Leave it the way it is. Spend the money on something else. Anyway, remember I told you about Zempic. And what is it? It's a test question. Zempic. Semaglutide. I was a biochemist in training, so my mind is kind of set to remember things like semaglutide. Well, they came up, and I'm taking 1 milligram doses. Well, lo and behold, look at that. 1 milligram Wegovy. It's the exact same pen with different wrappers, different names, same exact. And you know what? The reason why is, I don't know if you remember, test question. I used to teach at FAU for 20 years, God sakes. And whenever I go, test question. They were doing, I was taking I'll come back to Wegovy in a minute. But on March 19th, Tuesday, last week, I was the clerk, which is, there has to be a single person that the other 5 people, or 6 people, or 7 people, or 3 people report to. And the clerk is the head guy, and he rules on anything that the other 5 professionals, you know, they have a problem with a voter. Then we consult with the clerk, which is like the president of a little tiny 5-person organization. But in election parlances, you know, the clerk is the head person in a precinct or several precincts. So I was the clerk in precinct 8882 in Palm Beach County on Tuesday, which means I had to get up at 4 in the morning to get to the poll at 5:30. Everyone has to show up at 5:30. We all get in there at 5:30. And so between 5:30 and 6:30, we've got to have the poll voter ready. Voter ready is the terminology. And you have special cell phones, and you push buttons, and you hit the red button that says voter ready, which means you're ready to take a vote. And that's 1/2 hour before 7. So between 6 at 6:30, you got to be voter ready. 5:30 you show up. You got an hour to get all set up, and then you're voter ready at 6:30, and then which is a 1/2 hour before 7, because the polls open at 7, and then the clerk says, "Polls open." He raises his hand, says, "Polls open." They unlock the doors. The deputy out front has marked off the 150-foot barriers where no no man shall politic inside that area. No signs, no posters inside a 150-foot demarcation area around the front door of the pole. If there's a back door, around the back door. Or the back doors are locked and covered with this glass. Anyway, so I was a poll worker. I had to show up Monday for 11 o'clock meeting with the roving head of the young lady that supervised me to make sure everything was set up right. We were trained for 6 hours the week before that, some 2 weeks before and some 3 weeks before. They've had trouble getting enough people to volunteer, but it's not volunteer. You're paid. It's not a big wage. It's actually somewhere around minimum wage, quite frankly. But, I consider it, even if you were unpaid, you do it, for the civic duty. As a retired person, not that I want to be retired, but, just, when you get older, you're apparently not as desirable I was a banker all my life, so, and banks have, rules. I think at 75, you cannot be a senior officer of a bank. And I was a senior officer. I had elevated to a senior officer. I was vice chairman of a bank. But I was, which I think the director, you can be any age. I mean, I think you can be on the board of a bank at 85, if you're, have the desire to be on the board of a bank at 85 or 80 or 82. I would, depending on the safety and soundness of the bank, I would be happy to serve on the board of a bank. To give the officers of the bank my opinion on, things that govern the bank. That's what a director does. It directs, as a committee, as a group, 6, 8, 10, 12 directors. They listen to presentations by the chief executive officer and the president of a bank, and then the directors give their opinions. Now, I was CEO of a bank, chief executive officer of a bank, which is kind of like the clerk. But of a bank, it's the head dog of in the corporate world of a bank. And it's highly regulated with the Federal Reserve Bank. And the state of Florida has a division of banking. Both those agencies controlled our activities. We had rules and regulations. I mean, there's, books this thick of rules and regulations. About that thick, about 8 inches of books. Which, I knew. I read through those very carefully. As my friends tell me, I was a pretty smart feller. I'm really a smart feller. I could tell you chapter and verse of the significant rules and regulations concerning banking and finance. I'd have to review those books if I was going to be put back on the board, which I would do, if asked. That's not that little buzz sound was. I've been on air for an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up all year. But let me finish up on Wegovy. So Ozempic, when Ozempic came out, like 10 years ago, which was designed for controlling glucose levels in type 2 diabetes patients. And I was pre-diabetes, and then I was, then diabetes, and I was taking metformin as a pill that you take once a day, twice a day. Then my doctor tried to step me up to 3 times a day. I said, no, let's stop. I want to stop metformin because I've read things about liver and kidney complications and so forth. And so I don't want to go to 3 a day. But I don't want to take 500 milligrams 3 times a day. I don't want to take it anymore. I want to go to an insulin regimen. I was trained as a biochemist. I was a pre-med student. So, I get the joke with, taking, insulin with injections using the same kind of very, very fine needles with the Novo Nordisk, this system of the pen, with the dial, with the thing on the top, give yourself an injection. So you just poke it in, you push the top of the pen, you count to 6 slowly, and that should give you enough time, to put the entire injection in. Now the needle is so thin. It's the width of 2 human hairs. We're not talking horse hairs, we're talking human hairs. This needle is extremely fine. You can, if you brush it by your clothing or your skin, it'll bend the needle. And inside that, stainless steel needle is a hole, through which the semaglutide, gets injected under your skin. That's called subcutaneous. That's a serious issue, and you want to make sure that let's get my stopwatch back here. So that's it. So you have this little skinny weeny needle, which you can't feel. Getting pricked, but it's like a little prick. You can feel if you squeeze your skin a little bit, and then stick it in between where you've squeezed your skin, just to lift up the surface. You don't need to do that because the needle goes in just 4 millimeters. Subcutaneous injection of semaglutide, which is Ozempic. It absolutely controls your blood glucose level. It flattens out that curve so that it stays, in the green zone. I have in the back of my arm is something like a penny with a little pinprick on the other side, and you attach it to the back of your arm. I got it on the back of my right arm, and I'll probably switch to the back of my left arm. You switch back and forth. That little device lasts for 2 weeks exactly, and it communicates with my phone, and I showed you, the blood sugar results that you get. It pings that device every 5 minutes and comes up with a reading. Every 5 minutes, you get your blood glucose level every 5 minutes. So if there's a sudden spike, this device will pick it up. So that's called continuous glucose monitoring. CGM, if you've ever heard. It's always, an acronym for everything, particularly in medicine. So semaglutide controls your blood sugar. Well, the other thing that it does, this is like an ancillary benefit of Ozempic. is that it, not 100%, but it helps to prevent serious cardiovascular events. Now, what would be a serious cardiovascular event? Like heart attack and stroke. And so here you can see serious heart events. See that? Serious, it's more than heart. Serious cardiovascular events, like heart attacks. The other, when you say serious cardio, getting my tongue tied. Serious cardiovascular events would cover everything from heart attacks to strokes. So you don't want a stroke, because that's a pulse that jams so hard it pops an artery in your head. The artery could pop anywhere, but your arteries in your cranium are, softer and capable of, reacting to a hard compression of your heart muscle. Well, apparently it smooths out your heartbeat, so that's not quite so, dramatic. It smooths out the blood sugar, smooths out the heart rate. Doesn't necessarily drop it, but it just gets everything in more of a balanced situation. And the third benefit of Ozempic is, for a lot of patients over 10 years, they found weight. You had a weight loss, situation. So, it's gradual, but you don't have to be on a diet, because the semaglutide just slows down your everything, including your alimentary canal, which is a term that covers everything from your mouth, your throat, your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine, and your large intestine. Everything in there gets a little more gradual. So since it's a little more gradual, you don't have this huge hunger. I can go all day long and I don't feel hungry at all. You don't have hunger pains. It's not like your stomach is, you got all this feeling that you got to put something in there because you got this acid reflux and all that. You don't feel hungry at all. You drink water, because you always want to have water. That's separate from eating, of course. So that's the magic of Ozempic. So the wisdom of Novo Nordisk it's over in Scandinavia, Norway, I think, Norway or Sweden. I have to look that up again. I'm going to think Norway. Nordisk, Norway. I think it's the N word up there in Scandinavia. So since they found, so if you want to get a prescription for Ozempic for weight loss, Medicare will, and Humana, for example, they'll decline it, because it's designed for serious cardio. It's designed for your blood sugar, okay, and to drop your A1C, which is like a 90-day look at your blood glucose average levels. So I'm running around a value of 6.4. I was 7.5. So it's brought it down 1 whole point. And it'll bring it down further as I learn how to use this more. And it's, I'm only in my second week of the third month. So I've had 2 full months and a week. And today I take another little shot. So that'd be 2 weeks. And each pen gives you 4 weeks, 4 1 milligram doses. So, Novo Nordisk went back and rebranded into Wegovy. Same exact semaglutide, 1 milligram dose. They went back to Medicare, Medicaid, the FDA, ABC, the Food and Drug Administration, and Medicare, Medicaid, and they got it approved as of last week. Like Thursday, it's approved by Medicare, Medicaid. So that means Humana and everyone else is going to, look at Wegovy as a weight loss. So they've designed this now for weight loss. It's the same semaglutide, but they got it approved for weight loss because it works on your weight loss. These fatties, these real heavy people, can take Wegovy. It's the same exact thing. It's been this, I thought it was like the European name for, Ozempic. But no, it's the same thing, but it has been approved as a weight loss tool instead of now. It's also going to help. So the ancillary benefit of the weight loss Wegovy is the fact that it's going to stabilize your blood sugar, and it's going to help prevent, serious cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes. So, they are really covering senior citizens or any kind of citizen that has a blood sugar issue or a weight issue. The doctor would prescribe Ozempic to control your A1C. And the doctor would prescribe Wegovy if it was being prescribed for a weight control issue. So that's brand new. It's approved Thursday. So that's news for anybody out there in Radioland with my Simulcast, with Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and so forth. Okay. And with that, I'm going to end my broadcast. Have a great weekend.